And joining us now on the Granite City School District Alumni Spotlight is Mr. James Rooney, 1996 graduate of Granite City High School. James, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
And my name is Chris Mitchell. I'm the manager of district communications here at Granite City School District number 9. James is joining us from New York City, where he is currently a detective with the New York City Police Department. James, first of all, thank you for taking time out. I know you're a busy guy these days and appreciate you coming on here to talk a little bit about your career.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Looking forward to it.
Well, the first question is I want to talk a little bit about your path. Obviously, you graduated 20 plus years ago, 1996. James, your first path out of high school was straight to the Marine Corps. You went straight to boot camp in San Diego in 1996 in June. Can you talk to me about, first of all, like the decision that you made of not going to college straight out of high school and going straight to the Marine Corps?
Well, Chris, I had a huge desire to serve my country, and I love the Marine Corps and everything about it and what I knew of it. Um, and we had decisions to make. I mean, after high school, you either go to college, you start a career in one of the trades. The military is an option. To be honest with you, at that time, I probably wasn't ready to go to college. Um, I wasn't the greatest student in the world, by no means. So the Harvard and the Yales were not knocking down my door. But I also had a huge desire to serve my country. And I knew, this life is a long one, and giving back 4 years of to the United States and serving in the capacity of the United States Marine Corps was a great challenge and great opportunity.
So, James, you're in the Marine Corps for 5 years. You were sent to DC. You were part of the U.S. Silent Drill Platoon team. You worked at the White House. I know you have some probably stories that you could share, but you worked under the Clinton and Bush administration. Talk to me about those 5 years in the Marine Corps and some of your, top memories, and also what your role was.
Well, I joined the infantry. I was an infantryman as a 0311, a grunt, basic rifleman. And my greatest experience out of all those things that you spoke about was earning that title, United States Marine. That title lasts forever in a lifetime. And to earn that Eagle Globe and Anchor and be amongst the ranks in the history of the Marine Corps was an unbelievable honor. So once I graduated boot camp and earned that title Marine, I was then went to the School of Infantry, and then we were getting our locations of where we were going to go throughout the Fleet Marine Force. We actually got pulled out from the field, and a few of us got interviewed to go to Washington, D.C. at 8th and I, which is where the Marine Corps Honor Guard is. Um, After that interview, I find out a few months later that I was one of the Marines that was selected to serve there at 8th and I in Washington, D.C. I went to D.C. and I served in the Honor Guard. From there, I was asked um, to join the Marine Corps Silent Drill Platoon, which is a very, very prestigious group of Marines that basically represent all 175,000 Marines throughout the world. And I made the drill team, and I later became one of the Marine Corps Silent Drill Platoon instructors. And from there, Chris, I traveled around and represented the Marine Corps in all parts of the world, and then got the opportunity. Somebody asked me if I wanted to serve the Marine Corps at the White House Military Office as the Marine at the West Wing. Now, that alone, I can tell you, is a huge honor to be asked. And that first day, walking through those gates and standing at the door of the Oval Office in the West Wing, um, it just was an incredible, incredible experience. Being from Granite City, Illinois, and you know, considered a small town for, of 30 something thousand people, to represent the Marine Corps and our nation military at the West Wing was incredible. But let it be known, I stood there, and I also knew I was representing the people of Granite City as well.
So you worked for President Clinton and President Bush. What was that experience like, just being at the White House every day?
Well, it was an unbelievable experience, just kind of being there and seeing the stuff behind the scenes. I mean, Chris, I remember walking into the West Wing and seeing Rosa Parks sitting on the couch, at the reception room. I mean, that is stuff you read about in history books and you learn about. Never do you think that you have that opportunity. I mean, I saw world leaders and, during the peace accords for in Israel, and the Palestinians. We had Yasser Arafat and at the White House, and being shoulder to shoulder with them coming out of the West Wing was incredible experience. But some lighthearted things as well. I remember calling my father and telling my dad, who's still, by the way, my mom and dad still are residents of Granite City and proud residents of Granite City. And I remember calling my dad and saying, "Dad, Muhammad Ali just shadow boxed your son at the White House." I mean, that is something that is, my dad's a huge boxing fan, and that's something that probably put him on the floor. I mean, he probably told that story at the post office for the next 10 years, by the way. To see, to talk to Bob Gibson when President Bush had the baseball players there, and Stan Musial was playing harmonica, and I was talking to him about St. Louis and about where I was from. I mean, these were all experiences that I never would have had without making that decision at 17 years old to join the United States Marine Corps.
So my next question to you is, obviously you're a young man in a big time position at the White House. What'd you learn about yourself? Because obviously you probably became a man much quicker than the rest of us did while we were in college. What'd you learn about yourself?
What it did for me was it gave me confidence, because I knew I could be in that room. I saw some of the other kids that were there. Many of them, to be honest with you, many of them prep school graduates, Ivy League graduates, and having conversations with them and talking to them at my time at the White House, I knew that I too could be in that room. That there was nothing that was holding me back, and I also knew, I also knew that my experiences living and growing up in Granite City, that was unique to me, that these other people never had, and these experiences could help me on not only my time in the Marine Corps, but also my future endeavors.
So Detective Rooney, you spent some time as a St. Louis City Marshal from 03 to 06. So obviously you got to come back to St. Louis and Granite City for a while.
Right.
Then you joined the New York City Police Department in 2006. Obviously a big step in your career and your life. Was this kind of like always a dream of yours to work in New York City?
Well, Chris, in 2001, in April 2001, I left the Marine Corps, and I went to Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And I just remember that fateful morning in September of 2001. And 9/11, it rocked me to my core. I was in college, and I felt so, I needed to do something and be a part of something. I had just left the military, and we had just been attacked on our soil, something that we've never seen before. And so when I left college, I wanted to continue service, and I joined the St. Louis City Marshal's office. I started thinking about where I wanted to go and what did I want to do in the future. I remember watching those buildings collapse. I remember watching the NYPD and the FDNY do what they did, and they were truly the pillars of not only the city but also the nation. And they stood on that pile, and they went to the dumps and looked through bodies and were grabbing mementos of for family members, so they would have some kind of finalization to their loved one's life. I remember watching, if you remember watching, a few weeks later, Saturday Night Live came on for the first time. And to have, those members of the NYPD and FDNY standing on that stage, it sent chills on my spine and tears in my eyes. And I said to myself, I want to be a part of that. And I did. And I came back to St. Louis and I started taking a few tests for local police departments. And I remember filling in the bubbles of one of the neighboring towns of Granite. And I remember filling in New York City in the bubbles and getting up and leaving. And I said then and there, I said, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to join the finest police department in the world, the NYPD, in which I did. I then focused on the NYPD. I took the test. I flew out here to New York, took the test. I was accepted, and they gave me a date to start the academy. In 2006, I came out here with a duffel bag and a plane ticket, and moved to Harlem on 135th Street and Lenox Avenue. So with a few other recruits from the NYPD. It was a heck of an experience, but I made it through it. I graduated. I also, I earned that title of New York's finest, and another extremely proud moment to be a part of, I believe, the greatest police department in the world.
So, Detective Rooney, you have worked in South Bronx. Hopefully I don't miss anything here. You've worked in street narcotics. You've worked in the gang squad. You're a detective now. You've currently been working with the NYPD police commissioner staff. You have done and seen a lot since 2006.
Yeah. When you read those off, it sounds, I have a lot of great memories from a lot of those places. And I just had some great mentors when I got here. When I arrived to New York, I went through the academy and met some great people, and they gave me some good advice. I remember going to the library of the NYPD and looking at some of the precincts, some of those violent precincts that were struggling in terms of crime. And I remember selecting the 4-4 precinct in the South Bronx. What I didn't know is that was also the home of the New York Yankees. That's where Yankee Stadium is as well. The richest baseball stadium, the richest baseball team in the league is located actually in the poorest congressional district in the nation. And that's what the 4-4 precinct patrols. And so I went there. I showed up as a St. Louis Cardinal fan from St. Louis, who just recently in 2006 watched Adam Wainwright throw a curveball to Carlos Beltran that nobody's ever seen since. So imagine how that went over. So the Yankee fans were okay with it because they didn't like the Mets either, but the Met fans, they had some problems with that. But it was a good experience. They gave me a hard time, like I expected, and but they also welcomed me. I remember running and making an arrest of a guy with a firearm who had just, began shooting at somebody else. And I remember making that arrest and getting back and putting the gun on the desk, and one of the biggest Met fans in there and says, "All right, you're officially a New Yorker now. You know, if you're willing to go out and run after people with firearms that are shooting them, you are welcome in the city." So I greatly appreciated that. I worked in the 4-4 precinct and then got selected to go to the street narcotics unit team within the 4-4 precinct. Phenomenal group of police officers. And from there, I put my application in. I wanted to go to the Organized Crime Control Bureau, OCCB, which encompasses gangs as well. So I joined the gang squad and worked with, great detectives. I mean, just wonderful people that truly care about the city and put everything aside and work really, really hard and to make the city the safest city, big city in the world.
Thank you for sharing that story, Detective Rooney. It just shows that a lot of people just don't realize how much police officers are putting their life on the line every day. So I just want to thank you for sharing that story. So let's talk about currently. It's 2021, and now you're on the NYPD Police Commissioner staff with Dermot Shea, who's your new boss. Talk to me about your role right now.
Well, the new police commissioner, the police commissioner's been there actually for a year or so. Dermot Shea. I first met him in the Bronx. He was one of my commanding officers in the South Bronx, and he later went up the ranks. He became a chief of detectives, which I joined him there as the chief of detectives office, and then went to he became the police commissioner. He became the 44th police commissioner of the NYPD, a role that is extremely, extremely tough. This is a role with a lot of history. This is a role where the desk that he sits at today is the one that President Teddy Roosevelt sat on, who also was the NYPD police commissioner. So I work for Dermot Shea, and I do multiple different things for him in roles in his staff. Everything from security details to crime and things like that. So it's an incredible role. It's a huge honor and is a great responsibility. He represents all of the members of the NYPD and all 50,000 members of the NYPD, to include 30,000 uniform members of the NYPD. So it's a massive organization.
Detective Rooney, let's talk now about your family. I know it's very important to you, and been talking to you off the computer, and you tell me how important that is. You're married to Stephanie. You have a almost 5-year-old Charlotte and 2-year-old Reese. But here's the interesting thing: is you are not the only member of the NYPD in the Rooney family.
That's right. My wife is a sergeant in the NYPD. She works out of Queens, near St. John's University, actually. And she has the same amount of time as I do, 15 years in the job. And she's a huge role model for all women, to include my 2 young girls. She's an incredible cop, incredible sergeant. And I definitely outkicked the punt coverage on that one, Chris.
Thank you very much. I do want to ask, though, take me back to the 18-inning Cards Mets game that you and Stephanie were at when you knew she was the one.
Yeah, I knew she was the one. There was, I used to take her to drag her to all the Cardinals Mets games. And, I'm pretty in your face kind of person where, I was wearing all Cardinal red. I had her in Cardinal red, and we're in there the 18th inning game where she was asking to go home probably about the 6th inning, but she stayed with me the whole time, despite all the New Yorkers that were crushing us out in the outfield. by being Cardinal fans. But once again, like I said, it never hurts to remind them of 2006, that curveball, and that usually ends the conversation. But so I knew right then and there she was definitely a keeper.
My last couple questions for you, Detective Rooney, is in closing, I want to ask you about a couple influential teachers that you had at Granite City. That's my first question. And then my second question is, what would you tell a young GCHS 2021 graduate who might not know, man, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Do I go to college? Do I go to the military? Do I go work? So first question is, who's a couple influential teachers for you at GCHS?
Yeah, I've had some great teachers. I mean, and not only teachers in the classroom, but some people that would just, have conversations with me. And some of them were Mr. Smallman, a phenomenal teacher. He was teaching me history and current events. I remember sitting in the classroom and watching, if you remember, Channel 1 with Anderson Cooper. And that was the time whenever there was a lot of back and forth, and there was the collapse of the old Yugoslavia. You had many, there was a genocide going over there, and I remember having conversations with him about that. And like I said, I wasn't a great student, but I did know what was going on in the world, and he told me that's the most important thing. I had a teacher, Miss Perdutap, and I remember Miss Perdutap. She knew that I struggled. And I remember you had to turn in a final report to her English class to graduate high school. And I remember her saying to me, hey, listen, don't go crazy about picking a report. I'm going to pick one for you. And you're going to do a report on Iwo Jima, Mount Suribachi, and the United States Marine Corps. And she knew that was what interested me and what was important to me is that I would excel at. And so she told me to do that report, and I ended up having a pretty good grade on it. And I'll never forget that. I also don't want to leave out, Mr. Hamilton, great conversationalist, talking to him about world affairs and, Disney stock. It was a great opportunity. And Miss Scroggins, Bev Scroggins. I think Bev Scroggins was phenomenal. She knew I didn't have much talent on the stage at all, in the theater, but I was on a speech and theater class, and I had that class, and she said, hey, you love politics, you love current events, and you love talking. So I'm going to put you in an event called individual events and extemporaneous speaking. And extemporaneous speaking is where you have to keep up on what's going on in the news by reading the different news, whether it's the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the New York Times, New York Daily News, and you would show up at these competitions, and the dais would give you a topic, and you would have to speak on it. And it was a very difficult thing, but I'm telling you right now, I still use that skill today, and I thank Bev Scroggins for that, because it's something that I use when I talk to perpetrators, to witnesses, I still use that skill today, where you have to convince people to talk to you, and convince people to share some of their deepest secrets. And that class and that skill lasted throughout my life, and I still use that today.
If you had the entire graduating class see this next portion, what would you tell them?
Well, Chris, thanks for the question. And I tell you what, one thing I would say to the Granite City class is, thank you. And I tell you why. This is a group of kids who were born shortly after 9/11. Some of America's toughest times. They've survived and they've lived through a nation that's been fighting a two-front war. They were young kids when their mom and dads lost their jobs during one of the biggest economical collapses in our nation's history in 2007 and 2008. And now they've survived in high school during a 100-year pandemic. I don't think they get a lot of credit. I was just at, Chris, a few weeks ago, I was standing at the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C., which we quite often refer to as the greatest generation. And that's true, they are the greatest generation. But I think this generation has a lot to be proud of. And they should hold their head up high and be proud of that. I also want to say that, we often talk about high school as being a really great experience, and it is. But also, we have to be honest with ourselves. It's difficult. It's a very difficult experience. There's a lot of changes that are happening in high school. There's a lot of outside pressures that are happening in high school. And I just want to say, don't let high school define you, who you are. That, you live a long life. And for those 4 years to define you, you're doing yourself a disservice. Enjoy it. Learn a lot, learn as much as you can. And, but understand there is a life after high school. You will get through this. And it should not define the rest of your life.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Obviously, our seniors have had a rough go the last, 13, 14 months, and hopefully this will be a bright moment for them when they cross the stage in a few weeks.
That's awesome. Tell them congratulations. We're real proud of them, and never forget where you come from.
Well, Detective Rooney, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Wish the best for you and your family. And from one Granite Cityan to another, just want to say thank you for your service with the military and also your service with the New York City Police Department.
Thanks for what you do, Chris. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.